Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Weekly Recap. We have Gamescom, obviously. Xbox One X pre-orders.
Yes.
And the ever-hot topic right now, Rise of the Tomb Raider footage.
Running on X.
Yeah. Running on X. So, apparently Gamescom was pretty boring.
Yeah, I mean, we were going to do videos.
We were going to do some coverage during Gamescom.
But you ended up working quite a bit.
Turned out that I had a ton of work to do.
Yeah. So you're supposed to take a vacation, but that didn't work out. But I guess kind of the bright side of that is that Gamescom was a little bit boring. It was kind of a dud. I got to watch a lot of what was going on.
Yeah.
From the sites that were doing streams, and there was a mixer stream for the Xbox stuff.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff was good, seeing some of the gameplay we haven't seen from some games, but most of it was stuff we already know. Not a lot of reveals. There was that Jurassic Park game that's coming out.
Yeah.
That was about it. So there wasn't really
on new stuff.
Too much else. Nintendo had, a couple things they revealed?
A couple of games and just a lot of gameplay. It was kind of the typical Nintendo. I forget what they call their showcase, but they always showcase gameplay.
Sony didn't really show up to Gamescom.
Sony did not come to Gamescom.
Yeah, they'll have stuff later in the year.
That was kind of a last-minute announcement, so there was almost a hole in Gamescom because they didn't come. And I didn't see them on anything either, which was interesting.
I saw nothing from any of the games.
Nothing that said PlayStation at all, so no PlayStation at Gamescom. So, in my opinion, I think that Gamescom looked maybe not the way that I expected it to, but it makes total sense the way that Gamescom looked.
What do you mean?
Well, Microsoft was basically your big aspect of Gamescom because PlayStation wasn't there. And they have been putting all of their money and their R&D and their resources into hardware. Yeah. Getting the X out.
Well, I think what you're sort of broaching the topic is that a lot of people are worried about Microsoft. Yeah. They're saying this year was so bad, and we've even had interactions with people where they're not sure about what the future is and what's going on with some of those things.
Yeah.
And basically what you're saying is there's a cycle to it.
Yeah.
There's the hardware cycle where you put a lot of your R&D and a lot of your money into what's coming out. They had the Elite controller, you mentioned this last time, the S box, and now the X Xbox. So lots, billions and millions of dollars into that. Yeah. Then with most companies, there's actually kind of a gap in between the hardware and the games, like 3 or 4 years.
The launch of new hardware and the games that go with it.
The PS2, PS3, and PS4 have all been incredible sellers. They all sold 60 million plus, and went on to sell the first two, or the last two before this one, went on to do over 80 million units. But if you look at what happened games-wise from a first-party perspective, there weren't really a lot of games on the PS2 for the first 3 or 4 years. Yeah. Same thing with the PS3. First 3 years, nothing. And then the first-party titles started coming out.
Yeah.
PS4, same thing. It took 3 years to get Uncharted, and that was the first thing. So there's a cycle of hardware, money going into that, and then software, and that's what we're seing for Microsoft this year.
That's exactly what we're seeing. So I guess my thought is that seems on point. That seems normal.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think that, in reference to a lot of discussions that we've had lately, a lot of people are making these big recommendations with these massive budgets, and the reality is, the Xbox division has a limited budget, and they can only spend so much on hardware and so much on software.
Yeah.
So they're obviously trying to get the X out, which is working for them. We're going to discuss the pre-orders of the X soon. So that's working for them.
Yeah.
And they're, the first party games come along. But what's interesting in Microsoft's case is what you just said is actually in a little bit of a way not applying to Microsoft at this moment, because they still have all their first party studios working on their games.
Yeah, it seems like there's 5 first party games coming out next year?
5 first party games next year, I believe.
Yeah, and then they still haven't announced officially Halo 6 or Gears yet, so...
Yeah. So there's all of that in the works.
Yeah.
And they, it's actually kind of normal in the cycle of, the hardware generations to actually stop your first parties from whatever they're doing for a while.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that from Microsoft, but at the same time, of course, they're not revealing 15 new games. They're trying to get the X out. So...
focus is very much on X right now.
Very much on X, which is working for them. A lot of people said that the X wasn't going to work out. They didn't.
The pre-orders went live. That was another big story this week.
That was the big Gamescom thing, and I think that was Microsoft's intention.
Yes, yeah.
Was to really focus it again on the X.
Yeah, they didn't have any game announcement that would overshadow the X, because had they announced a Halo or Gears or whatever else they're working on that we don't know about, that might have overshadowed.
Stolen a little thunder.
Yeah, and they really, I think it was smart for them to put the attention on this pre-order, and they waited for Gamescom for this. So
yeah, and everybody was just, from what you could tell, everybody was sitting there just waiting for the announcement.
Yeah.
And, of course they did it at the end so that, again, they didn't cause
they
a
ended their
distraction.
first stream is what you mean.
Yeah, their big Gamescom stream. It was supposed to be their big press conference or whatever. So they waited till the end of that to announce the X. They announced a couple of little things here and there, but everyone was on pins and needles waiting for the X to launch. Like, nobody was even paying attention. They were busy, trying to make sure they had their websites up to order the X and everything else.
It apparently broke records as far as
broke some major records.
Pre-orders go for consoles. So, I mean, if you go by what we've seen from previous console launches, we've seen 3 to 5 million sold within a certain time frame. Usually the launch window, which can be anywhere from 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
That's impressive right there, especially if it's only 3 months. If that's what your window is,
yeah.
you can sell 5 million. That's really good numbers. If this broke records, we could definitely expect it to sell 5 million within the first 3 months, which was my prediction from a while back. I definitely think it's gonna get 5. And if they can produce more, if they can get 7 million out, I think it'll even hit that number as well. It's just a matter of making sure that you've got your supply chains worked out correctly, making sure there's no issues with any of the chips, like what we've heard about with Switch. They've had some issues with some of the yields and some of the chips. And if they can do that and they can get it to the right markets, North America is going to be big. Yeah. Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. If you can get more units in those 3 countries, you're going to do very well.
Yeah. Well, and then we've talked about the generational cycles, but doesn't it seem like the X is kind of attempting to break that in a way?
Yeah, it is. You're definitely right, and other people we've spoken with about this are definitely right by thinking that that's the case. But if you do look at everything they've done since the original Xbox from the 2001 era, they've actually really already kind of done this. So in the 360 era, they stopped selling the Xbox pretty quickly and focused hardcore on the 360 console. Then a good 4 to 5 years later, they came out with the Slim, and they really shifted their focus. So even though the Slim wasn't a huge power increase over the original Xbox, they had a few tweaks and things in the chipset that worked better than the original 360. They already did that. So that was kind of a thing where it was generational. Yeah. And then they came out with the Kinect. So that's what prevented the Xbox One, essentially. Otherwise, we would have seen that earlier. So they've really kind of done that. They did it with the Slim and the Kinect. That was a generational sort of leap, even though it wasn't graphics leap. It was more gameplay and that kind of thing. And then they came out with the Xbox One, and then obviously 4 years later, you're getting the X almost to the day, just a couple weeks apart. So I think they've already been doing this. They've already set the template of what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Plus, they announced they're working on the successor to the X, and they're working on that as they're working on the X. Yeah. So they're taking some of the techniques and things that they've learned working with their partners like AMD.
Harnessing those to make even more.
To make the next console come out, even.
So your thought is or I guess maybe you're in the know, is that they are working on the next console.
They've already said they have. Okay. Yeah.
So because my thought process there was, they talk about the X being more future-proof, and it is, because a lot of people probably won't upgrade.
I think they're getting away from using the words future-proof now. They want people to upgrade.
Yeah, I haven't heard that in a while, so I guess they do want the same thing.
Everybody's eyeing what Apple did in the cell phone space. And coming out with a new phone every year is the best way to do it. Yeah. Because you have your bell curve, cutting-edge audience that
always wants the newer thing. You'll always sell that to
They're
them.
absolutely going to spend $1,000 on a new iPhone. They don't care. They're going to do it.
Yeah.
Then you have your people that are a little bit further down on the curve, and they will get the new one a year later after that, after the prices come down a little.
Yeah.
Then you have the people that are happy with the 2-year-old phone. Yeah. Then you have another set of people that are like, I'm keeping my phone until it doesn't work.
Right.
So,
which they also cover, if we're talking about.
Yes, and we're talking about hundreds of million of people in each demographic.
Yeah, you have people that buy one every other new update, but literally the secondary update will cause them to buy another.
That's where gaming is going. There's certain
where all technology is going.
There's certain countries that aren't first world countries out there that just recently got PS2 or PS3.
Yeah.
So, and when I say recent, I mean last 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Whereas we all know PS2 launched in 2000.
Yeah.
That's 17, 18 years ago. There's other countries that are just now getting that technology, and they're happy with it. They're like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So the gaming is going in that same direction where, you're going to have people that love the X and want the cutting edge, And then you're going to have people that are like, no, the S is good enough for me.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have your people that stick with their day one Xbox.
Yeah. And so Microsoft continues to support the software for all of them.
Yes.
That's one of their big things, is to keep the ecosystem comfortable for
They
all
discontinued selling the Xbox One, the original, but they're going to support it with updates.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then they come out with the next one, the successor to the X, and now maybe you have some of the current S people or some of the day one Xbox people that are going to buy the X, because it's now the older one.
Well, you're hearing a lot of like PS4 people that were exclusive to this generation saying they're going to buy it. You're also hearing PC gamers saying that they're getting a little tired of the cycle of having to upgrade your GPU and then having the disparity between the CPU being an older one and then the bottlenecks that come out of that. It's a big problem if you're not into that stuff.
Yeah.
If you're a tech person and you like getting under your desk and doing all that stuff, maybe not you, but other people are going to jump ship and get the X.
Well, you have your people who are truly PC gaming people, and you can't fix them. They want to do that. They want to buy all their stuff, and they want to keep upgrading. But you also have people who probably are gaming on PC because that's where the resolution is the best. But that's about to change. That's
actually not true. If you look at some of the Steam data that's come out, most PC gamers are actually gaming in sub HD resolutions. Really? Primarily, the reason is they want the frame rate to be higher. So I feel like frame rate is...
So they're still thinking that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, essentially. But I mean, I feel like frame rate is what PC gamers care about more than actual fun or actual great gameplay.
I'm always hearing that tagline, 100 frames per second. And I'm like, why would you want that?
Or the worst is, to me, the 60 frames. Because when you're playing a game, you're not even really thinking about that. Once you get into the game, you don't see frame rates. And when you think about the whole reason like we do things, the whole reason you go to the movies, the whole reason you travel is for the memories, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, long term, it's more about the memories of those things. You don't think in frames per second.
Right.
Your memories
don't
get...
can't do those 60 frames per second.
Your memories don't get stored in 30 or 60 frames per second. Yeah. So it's kind of ridiculous to be focused on that.
It's in how it looks. It's in resolution.
Resolution, you do think about that. You do remember things being crisp versus kind of blurry.
Yeah,
You do remember fun gameplay versus not fun gameplay. That's really where your mind gets stuck in. So
frame rate's important, but I personally feel like consistent frame rate is important.
Is more important, yeah.
Because I can actually think of games that are like back compat that I've played way in the past that I actually think of them and I think of frame rate glitches because they happened so much that they actually got frozen into my memory with the game. But for the most part, in the last
I'm not years, like you in that regard. I don't ever remember games dipping in frames. Never. Nothing.
That's the only time I can think of it as games that just really dip to where they freeze a little bit. And you're like, am I about to lose all my saves?
Yeah.
Which hasn't happened recently.
So why are you worried about that?
For a while. So, but it's interesting because there was actually somebody that made a point on Twitter that wasn't the point they were trying to make. That basically you can buy 3 Xbox One X's for the cost of basically a gaming PC, right? Was essentially what came out of that conversation. Yeah. So it's interesting because you can now take, the frame rates and the resolution, whatever you're going to choose, because one of the things we saw in our upcoming topic about Rise of the Tomb Raider was that you have a lot of choices for how you use the power of the X. And now you can have 3 X's, 1 in each room, for the cost that you can have 1 gaming PC, and you essentially are going to get a lot of the same choices, and you're going to get...
They were trying to say, from what I'm understanding what you're saying, is that one $1,500 PC is superior to a $3 $500 Xbox One X's, right?
Yeah, they were saying, why would
your argument is that's retarded.
Yeah.
It's much better to have 3 X's in different rooms of your house.
Yeah.
Than only one computer that's only, relative to one room. Now it's stuck in the one room.
Yeah, so basically the person was commenting on somebody saying that they got 3 X's pre-ordered, and the person was like, why would you buy 3 X's if you could just buy 1 gaming PC? And I laughed really hard because I was like, what kind of logic was that? Like, that's the opposite of logic. Why would you buy 1 PC that's stuck with 1 uncomfortable chair when you could buy 3 X's and you're now going to get the same thing?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then
it's crazy.
Mike Ibarra mentioned that the X is comparable to running a $1,500 PC. Some new reports and some new things came out that said that you need basically an i7 Intel CPU with a GTX 1080 GPU to run Forza, the new Forza game, Forza 7, in 4K 60 frames per second. So if you add that up and then you understand all the other components that go into building that kind of a rig, it's even higher than $1,500 to be able to achieve the same thing you can achieve for $499 on Forza 7 on a console. So
you can have all of your high-res, high frame rate gaming in every room of the house for the same cost.
And some other things came out. So the Tomb Raider thing is next, right?
Yeah. So during Gamescom, I guess, there was a demo of Rise of the Tomb Raider on Xbox One X. And it got a lot of people's interest, of which one was someone from Digital Foundry.
Yeah.
And that led them to go back and essentially do their testing of the PC, the PS4 Pro, and the Xbox One X versions of Rise of the Tomb Raider.
So I got to ask you, you saw it, and you looked at the screenshots.
Yeah.
Out of the three, what's number 3, what's number 2, and what's number 1 in your opinion? Based off of your eyesight, which is 2020.
Yeah, so I have a weird answer to this possibly, because I felt like in some of the screenshots, I felt like X was always the best. Like they were really, it was heads above what we had seen before. Yeah. But there were some of them that PS4 Pro took the second slot, and some of them PC did. Which probably has to do with all the inner workings of the PC versions of the games and all the complications of gaming on PC. Some moments it's going to look better on PC than it does on the Pro, and some moments it's the opposite, which is really interesting.
It's funny that you say that, because nobody out there would probably agree with you. The general consensus, even with console gamers, and this is like one of the most frustrating things to be a part of and be a part of any conversations with people that get into that.
Yeah.
The general consensus is that PC gaming is always the best, no matter what.
Which is crazy. I've never understood.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no this CPU versus that. There's none of that. It's just PC gaming.
Master race.
Yes, that's what it is. It's always the best, and
it's crazy.
There's been multiple generations where that hasn't been true. There's been multiple times where a console version has run better, has performed better, and even looked better than a PC version. Nobody talks about this.
No.
They act as if it's never occurred ever.
Yeah.
And we're about to see it again.
And they're still acting as though it's not occurring right this moment.
And we're about to see it again with the X hardware. With Rise of the Tomb Raider. That's an old game, too. That's a 2-year-old game. What do you think is going to happen when you put money and development time in a studio and all the resources of the X and what Microsoft has to offer into a developer that's experienced, that knows what they're doing? The developer that's doing that port is... They've not been around for a long time. Yeah. They basically do ports. They don't make their own brand new games. Right. What happens when you give it to the Crytek team that did Rise, Son of Rome?
Everybody's waiting for that.
Yeah, what's that game gonna look like? Yeah. What happens to the team that did Dead Rising 3 and how amazing that looked at the start of the generation?
Yeah.
Or the Coalition that did Gears 4. Still, I still think that's probably the best looking game this generation.
That game is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens when you give Coalition the X and say, here's your money.
Build it from the ground up.
For
the X.
Yeah.
That's going to make a massive difference, because the truth is most of these games that we're talking about resolution in are not built from the ground up for PC. Very few games are.
And if you remember, we predicted this in, I think, our first video that we ever uploaded.
Yeah, the Scorpio video.
Yeah, the Scorpio specs.
Scorpio, we didn't even know what it was called at that point.
Yeah.
And we said that essentially the consoles would be able to overtake PC very shortly, when actually there's an alternate argument out there that we've also discussed before, which is that, the console race is dying, the PC master race is going to take over.
You always hear that.
And it's, and you got to also consider, because the reason that I play on console is it's on my couch.
Yeah.
And the other advantage that was showcased in that discussion on Twitter is not only is it on my couch, I could also have one in my bedroom, I could have one in my office, I could have them anywhere I want. And so we're talking about sitting in the comfort of your living room, getting resolution like this.
You have a really nice love sectional, all right? You've got an Elite controller.
Yep.
All right, you got a nice TV that you can swivel and move around any which way you want.
Yep.
And you don't have to be 18 inches away from it.
Yeah.
So how...
And it's not like this big as well. It's a 55-inch
It's not a 27, 34-inch monitor.
Yeah, because that's always been one of the things that I've thought would be the worst about trying to play.
Yeah, it's a 4K HDR, QLED. So you're really enjoying the setup that you've worked so hard for.
Exactly.
To have in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah.
Why would you sit at a desk 18 inches away?
As was showcased by what happened with Gamescom. Like, I spend a lot of time in a desk chair. I don't need to spend any more time in a desk chair. I can't imagine that being essentially what you consider your hobby.
Yeah.
So you're taking screenshots that are showing that the X is showcasing better graphics, better... There were a lot of different things that they explored with this demo.
Yeah.
And you're taking that and you're putting it in your living room. And that nobody's talking about that's
in your living room, or some people have a game room. You're starting to hear a lot about game rooms.
A lot about game rooms, man caves. I don't have a man cave myself, but...
The theater room. that people start to build, or they allocate one of their...
so you can put it in there.
Yeah, one of their guest bedrooms, or one of their other bedrooms, or sometimes a closet that's really large or whatever. You hear about that a lot. So, I mean...
That's crazy.
That's incredible.
Like, you can't even put a price tag, much less $4.99, which is an exceptional price, on being able to play it wherever you want.
You could have all...
why console players are...
You could have everything you just built for yourself, or you could have a $5,000 gaming rig. Which is it?
That's crazy.
What do you want?
So crazy.
Yeah.
And so Rise of the Tomb Raider has, and I'm assuming that most games will, especially games that are built from the ground up, but basically what I learned from this Digital Foundry demo is it has an option for high frame rate. And they're talking about there are some sections of Rise of the Tomb Raider that struggle with frame rate drops even on PC. So they're really excited to see if the X can get through some of those sections. There's a...
it's an alpha, too. This game is not finished.
Yeah, this is just beginning to start to be developed to X.
What's it going to be like when it's finished?
There's like a high colors or some other mode. So there's high resolution mode. There's
well, you have a wider color gamut now, so they're using the Rec 2020 and basically HDR, which you could see a little bit, but it's an alpha, so it's not...
Yeah, like, you can't really tell what they're even doing with it.
My only criticism of it was that it looked a little faded to me, like the contrast looks a little off.
Yeah, the colors hadn't been put back in yet.
But you know that's going to be corrected when you have a great screen that has HDR capabilities. So
absolutely. They were showcasing it on, I would assume, ironically enough, a PC. Is how they do their testing for Digital Foundry. So you were looking at PC images either way. But what's interesting is you take, there's 3 modes. There's a 4K, there's a frame rate, and then there's like a high textures or high colors. Like, I don't even remember what the third one was, but it was something that could make things around you pop.
Well, that developer did the port for the PS4 Pro. Yeah. So they're basically copying some of what they did there. Some of what they're just adding more to it now. They're adding more features.
And they're going to go back in and do, I'm sure, a lot of the textures and a lot of the colors and things like that. But it looked exceptional. I mean, the detail in the face is what I'm always talking about, is the detail in the face. Yeah. You can see her pores. You can see I also talk about linen all the time. Assassin's Creed impressed me because of the linen fabric. You can see her linen in her scarf. And I really don't think we've seen anything like that.
Yeah, you can see the scratches
that was the first time I ever saw
on the face and the dirt and all that.
You can see her scratches. You can see the differences in the colors of blood that are on her cheek. It's crazy.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that builds up over the course of the game. Anybody that's played through Rise of the Tomb Raider, you start out, she starts out just completely clean and everything's okay. And then over the course of the game, she gets more dirt, more grime, more scratches. Her clothes get all messed up. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see how far that goes on the X.
That will be really, really cool. Yeah. That's all of our major topics, right?
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it. But the SNES pre-orders went live and
they did
sold out very quickly at a really weird time. It was like 1 a.m. or something. That was
so weird. And all the retailers did different times.
We were lucky because you were up because you just got off of work. Yeah. And I was up because of a night out.
Get a notification.
Ended up getting some of those, so that was cool.
So that was interesting, but it's really weird because all the pre-order times were different. Yeah. And the days were different, and the different retailers were different. So yeah. I mean, it sold out really fast. I guess is it gone?
Yeah, the first wave. I'm sure they'll do more. You'll hear about it. Just like with the X, there's waves of pre-orders. So yeah.
So that will be interesting to see what the Xbox One X continues to do and what the SNES continues to do. So it's a pretty exciting time to be a gamer.
Even if 20% of people cancel their pre-order on the X, which always happens with all launches, they're still going to break records when that thing launches. So
absolutely, it's going to be crazy. Especially when they start to do more demos, because really we haven't even... A lot of people don't even understand what it does. Yeah. They'll have to see it, like the Rise of the Tomb Raider demo, to really understand. So
that 4K 60 HDR capture was confirmed as well, so that's going to be nice.
That's going to be really cool. That will help more people buy it as well. So it's very interesting.
Don't have to spend $1,000 on a capture card. So.
Seriously, that's crazy. So that's it, right?
That's pretty much it.
That's our weekly recap. So, yeah. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, do subscribe and click the bell on. You'll get a notification when we do drop our videos. We try to do one every weekend, definitely a weekly recap every week, but sometimes they're on different days, so you get the notification. Give us a like and comment below. Let us know what you thought of Gamescom. Let us know if you saw the Rise of the Tomb Raider demo and what you thought of that as well. We love your comments. Yeah, thanks for watching.